Hey, this thing vlogger. Remember this video from like a decade back? It's Russia's Almasty, which is what they call a Bigfoot. Have a watch. The father and son out there in the woods. There it goes, leaping past. Okay, so now let me zoom in on this and show you something pretty incredible. Now, it's over here on the right side of the screen, about to make its grand appearance. And right there, this black mass, and I'm just slowly scrubbing through. Look, it has launched itself and is now flying through the air. And then it appears to grab on to this large limb here, pulls itself down to the ground, then takes off running on all fours. That is incredibly athletic and nimble. I mean, could you do that? Could you, like out there in the woods where you're going to fall? I mean, if you're not watching every step, you're probably going to fall. Could you put on a big, heavy, bulky monkey suit and a big, bulky mask where you can barely see and some big, giant, fake feet and launch yourself through the air like an acrobat, grab onto the limb, and then swing to the ground and take off running on all fours? I don't think you could do that. I don't think anybody, any human could do that. If somebody can, boy, film yourself doing this. I would love to see that. And then it runs behind some trees and comes out flying again, laterally, doing this big threatening display saying, look how big I am. You don't want to mess with me. And I would agree with that. But look at that wingspan. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Even if you're a hardcore skeptic, you would have to admit there's something pretty weird about this. So I'm going to do something that has never been done before. I am going to use something I've developed. It's using simple common sense and logic. I'm going to prove 100% what we are looking at here. So let's go check it out. Okay, first we need to find one shot of this big guy or gal where we can see the most of it. And right here, see here its knee, right knee is bent. And next frame we can see it kicking out. So we see the knee there, almost the full leg. We're not seeing part of the foot. We'll have to allow for that. But this right here gives us our best look. Okay, so next I drew a rough outline around our leaping figure here. And when a figure is that far away from the camera and that blurry, you lose a ton of information around its edges. We've lost a lot of its size. Like, for example, squint at something across the room you're sitting in. You'll see what I'm talking about. And also, we can't see part of its left side. It's behind a tree and some limbs. And so next, I pulled the figure into a 3D program. And this is obviously a human 3D figure that I have rescaled and got it as close as I could to fitting within the green line. And so this is at least reasonably close to the leaping figure. Okay, so now we're getting down to it. Next, I took the 3 longest measurements you can take on a figure like this. I measured its torso from base of its neck down to the tip of its tailbone. I measured its arms and its legs. And here are what those 5 measurements look like. And you can see I've measured from major body joint down to major body joint. And so looking at that, it's still really hard to get an idea of this thing's proportions. So next, I pulled all 5 of these measurements over into what I call a proportional DNA chart. I wrote a book about this a couple of years back called Solved. It's out on Amazon now. You can learn all about this. And so now we can see whatever this thing is. Over here on the left, we can see it's got a torso and arms and legs all about the same relative length. So all I have to do now is find which large primate that matches up with these body proportions. So here I measured a chimpanzee skeleton, and these are the same quality skeletons that are sold to hospitals and universities and laboratories. And I measured it the exact same way. And here are chimpanzee proportions. And it's telling us what we already know, that chimps have these little short legs, which are about the same length as its torsos, but then chimps and gorillas and orangutans and all large primates have these massively long arms. So next I pulled these proportions over just so that we could see and compare for ourselves, and check it out. Nowhere near a match. Okay, so now it's time to place your bets. All you skeptics who believe that this thing over here on the right is nothing but a human in a monkey suit, put your money where your mouth is. Of course, all those same skeptics have long since quit watching this video, if they've watched it at all. All skeptics do is show up and post really brilliant comments like, dude, you're wrong. That's not proof. That's just an opinion. Anyway, here we go. This is a human male skeleton measured the exact same way right there. There we go. And here are its proportions over here on the right. These are also my body proportions. These are your body proportions. These proportions represent every normal, typical adult human on the planet, male and female, all ethnicities. And we can clearly see that there's no other species like us humans, especially no large primate that has a torso and arms the same relative length with these granddaddy long legs of ours. All humans, I don't care if you're 4'8" or 7'8", it's the same way. Our legs are about 30% longer. And so now I'm going to pull human proportions over just so we can see and compare. There you go. Not even close. So now we all know, using a simple scientific, measurable, comparative analysis, that whatever this thing is here on the right, it could not possibly be a human or any known primate. And now to prove that the mystery Russian leaping, hopping gymnast creature isn't just a fluke, I measured the Patterson forest giant the exact same way. And here I've pulled the Patterson forest giant body proportions in, and now I'll scale them down so that they're roughly the same size, a little bit more. There we go. Now we can see all three for ourselves. Over on the left, red team represents all the body proportions of all of mankind. Here in the center is the Russian leaping Bigfoot, and over here on the right is the Patterson Bigfoot or forest giant. And we can see we have pretty much an exact match here with the center and the far right. So now, finally, after over a decade of scratching our heads, now we finally know that this amazing creature here that can fly through the air like a gymnast doing these incredible things could not possibly be a human, could not possibly be any other known primate, and does in fact match the Patterson Bigfoot body proportions all but perfectly, which means they are more than likely the exact same species. So to the entire global scientific community that thinks Bigfoot is a hoax, and to the overwhelming majority of people out there that think Bigfoot is a hoax, the ball is now in your court. It is now upon you to prove that I was either profoundly wrong with my measurements here, or you're going to have to start coming up with photos and videos of humans out there that have a torso and arms and legs all the same length. And guess what? Those people don't exist. If they did, they would look so freakishly bizarre that everywhere they went, people would be shooting videos and photos of them and posting them online and sharing them. But that has never happened. Those people aren't out there. But here, let's do this real quick. I'm going to grab this guy's thigh and shin like that. Remember, for the Russian leaper here to be a human, its legs would need to be 30% longer than they are, like red team over here on the left. And that would look something about like that, where its hip socket was up in the middle of its spine, or something about like that. And so any reasonable person with any intelligence at all can look at that and see that I was not 30% wrong on my measurements. That means that, like it or not, the Russian mystery leaper creature here and the Patterson Bigfoot and more, several more of these big furry giants that I've measured and done this, put through the same process, they exist. They are their own living, breathing species, now with proof of them living on multiple continents. And they are species with body proportions so profoundly different from every other large primate, including humans, that it couldn't possibly ever again be mistaken identity or some dude in a monkey suit. I mean, that explanation is dead and laughable. And my little species identification system here proves that. So special thanks, as always, to my patrons and YouTube members. Most of you paying like $1 a month. Your contributions have led to the answer that the most of the world still believes is impossible, that there is actually simple scientific proof based on logic that forest giants, Bigfoot, Yowies, Yetis, whatever you want to call them, they exist. Hit subscribe. Help me trick YouTube's algorithm into showing videos like this to more and more people so that we can educate the world that there is now proof that these giants do in fact exist, and that they deserve the respect of being recognized as a species, and governments are going to have to start acknowledging the fact that the species exist and possibly even protecting them and their lands. That is my goal. Please help with that process. You can do that by subscribing and becoming a patron and member, or buying my books, caps, or t-shirts. All of it helps. All right, everybody, that is all I've got. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.